Now we will enter into the second session of today, which is product demo. And to present this, may I now request to introduce our second speaker of the day, Mr. Ian Baxter. Ian is a solution engineer with Automax. He has over 25 years of industry experience in information security, technology, and communication system engineering field, preliminary focused on areas such as design, sales, and implementation, as well as managing a global post-sales engineering team. Ian was born in England, grew up in South Africa, and has lived in southern eastern US since 2001. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Nirab. Thank you for your introduction, and thank you to everybody so much for your time today. As Nirab said, my name is Ian Baxter. I'm a solutions engineer here at Automax, and today I'll be taking you through a brief overview of who we are and what we do. My goal for today is really that you come away feeling like you understand why organizations choose Automax, and whether or not this is a tool that might help you solve real problems for your organization. I just want to walk you through a couple of minutes of context around our business. So Automax is a cloud-native IT ops platform, and by design, we're SaaS-based, and we're really all about giving IT teams the ability to act. Automax started back in 2015 as a cloud-native Linux patching platform, and we expanded to Windows and Mac. And since our inception in 2015, we've seen over 3,000 IT teams, everything from sole system administrators trying to keep up the entirety of their IT infrastructure, to fully staffed IT ops units managing thousands of endpoints such as NASA, Dropbox, Zoom, and so on. And they've all chosen to change the way they think about managing IT operations. Many of these are switching from a litany of tools that are siloed and can't communicate very well with each other. And we've seen organizations choose to leave these products for many reasons. One of those may be the complexity of multiple on-prem tools, which isn't optimized for as a service, doesn't scale well, resource intensive, and cripples their efficiency. VPN dependency prevents their ability to manage and support remote workforces. When everybody went remote a couple of years ago, it became very difficult to push out patches. And so end users tend to not really want to update their platforms. Their existing stack requires too many tools to support cloud workloads. Cloud-native software has penetrated just about every industry, with companies like CrowdStrike completely transforming SecOps, but IT ops is still largely dependent on on-premise tools that are confusing and expensive to administer, and that results in a laundry list of problems. When I'm on calls with organizations, I often hear this consistent list of problems. They lack confidence in their current tooling. They aren't reliable. They aren't accurately reporting. Their end users are becoming non-compliant. There's lots of manual work leading to burnout and high turnover. Devices that are in bad states of health, and end users who are frustrated and unproductive because of this. Also, not having the ability to support all three operating systems and third-party titles across their environment is another big one. And lastly, systems drift, where the entire system has just shifted so far away from the desired configuration states, and it requires a lot of manual effort to bring that drift back to center. And this list really perpetuates the reactive nature of what they need to do, and it blocks efficiency. So action for teams should be easy. A day to remediate a vulnerability, minutes to patch all of your endpoints, and a massive reduction in the effort and cost of supporting your clients. The average critical vulnerability takes 102 days to remediate. Our customers typically harden critical vulnerabilities in about a day. I like to think of Automax as an action engine. We have a very lightweight agent. It's about 7 megabytes on every device. And that, paired with our cloud-native architecture, allows organizations to patch any endpoint anywhere across Mac, Windows, or Linux. It allows them to sync with EDR and vulnerability management tools to accelerate remediation of those CVEs that they discover through vulnerability scanning. It allows them to configure devices and deploy software across the organization, regardless of operating system. And it allows them to automate any scriptable action at scale through a feature that we call Worklets. And all of this is done from the cloud with zero infrastructure. Okay, so enough slides. Let's jump into the console. So here's a brief look at our console. I'm not going to go into excruciating detail here. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we do. However, I just want to highlight here that this console is based in the cloud. So all customers just access your version of the dashboard. You just access it through a URL. It's very, very simple to get up and running. There's zero infrastructure for you to build and maintain. The platform is broken up into some very easy areas of use. And we'll start here on the left-hand side with devices. So when a system is first set up, there won't be any devices in here. And it's very easy to add devices in order to get info into our system. It's simply a case of choosing the operating system and downloading the agent for that operating system. Once that agent is installed on the end station, the device will check in with our platform and it'll gather certain details such as system details, right, with some hardware information and so on. We'll gather networking details. We'll also show you the status of the device. Is the agent actually connected to our cloud? If it is connected, is it ready to accept commands? And is it compliant with the policies associated with this device? We can also restart the device from here. We can force a rescan of the end station and so on. But what we'll also show here is we'll show you all of the policies associated with that device, whether those are patching policies, whether those are required software policies, or whether they are that scripting type policy that we call the worklet. And you can see here that I can basically have on-demand policies, as well as I can have policies that get run based on a schedule of my choosing. But in all cases, I want to be able to, I still have the option to run a policy immediately on this device. Now, as part of the agent's duties on the end station, what it does, it also builds a software inventory of everything that's installed on that end station, as well as any updates that are available for that end station. And we can choose to install these updates immediately, or we can choose to let policies handle those updates based on our policies. So that's device visibility, right? And we can take this screen here gives us a roll up. We can filter devices. I can also take multiple actions here, such as reboot multiple devices. I can export reports on these devices and so on. But that's basically device visibility. Then the software tab here, this gives us basically a roll-up of all of those individual software inventories that each device builds. Here we combine them all, and there's a few useful features here that I can use on this screen. For instance, in my demo environment, I can just search for Chrome, and you'll see here that I have a number of different versions of Chrome, both Windows, Mac, Linux across my environment, and it shows me how many devices have been updated with that version and how many are impacted by an update. Another use that I can do here is I can also search for software that may not be supported by Automax directly. When I say supported, here, for instance, are all of the operating system versions that we support, everything from Windows Workstation 7 and later, everything Windows Server 2008 and later, a range of Mac OS versions, as well as a number of Linux distros. We support all of these operating systems. We support patching of those. Not only do we support the operating systems, we also support a range of third-party titles. And here you can see there's a long list of third-party titles that we support. And when I say support, what I mean is Automax has built the integration and the back-end infrastructure to monitor these software titles for any updates. And if desired, we can treat updates to all of these applications as part of your regular patching cadence when patching operating systems as well. So even though we do support all of those operating systems and those third-party titles, I can, however, still get visibility into titles that we may not support patching of. But I can still see that, for instance, the game Minecraft is installed somewhere in my organization. And using policies, I can actually go and uninstall Minecraft and make sure that that every time any agent finds Minecraft in the organization, we'll automatically uninstall it every time we find it. But another very useful and powerful use of this screen here, the software tab, is let's say somebody walks up to me and says, hey, what's our exposure to this CVE ID? Well, I can simply type that CVE ID in, and you'll see here that there is a Windows update that addresses that CVE. And here you can see that I have one device that has been updated with that update. I don't have any device that require that update or that are impacted by that update. So in other words, I'm fully covered when it comes to this CVE. It doesn't have to be a single CVE. I can search for instance, all of 2022 CVEs, and I can search by impacted here, and you'll see that I have a number of devices, both Linux and Windows. This update here addresses a number of CVEs, and I have two devices that are impacted. If this was an emergency situation, I could simply go and hit patch now, and it would go and update those devices with that update. If I didn't want to wait for instance, for my policy to run, I can force that update immediately on an end station. Okay, so those two tabs are visibility tabs, right? Device visibility, software visibility. Over here we have reports. That's more visibility, historical visibility, if you will. But all of the automation, all of the action within Automax happens here under the Manage tab. And when I say automation, I really mean policies. So let's take a look at a few different policy types that we support. And I'll go through these in a little more detail. However, we have patching policies. We have software deployment policies. We call this required software. That's the ability to push out any application across all of those operating systems throughout your organization. And then we have this policy type called a worklet. And really, once again, to summarize what a worklet is, it's really the ability to apply and automate any scriptable action using PowerShell or Bash scripting languages. And we'll get to a few use cases of that, but everything from applying configurations and doing configuration management, anything to troubleshooting and scanning through your organization for any condition. And we'll get to that in detail. But basically, we have Let's run through the policies, and I'll show you what we've done. For instance, with regard to patching, we've architected our policies such that you get to choose how much hands-on or hands-off you want to have with regard to your patching. So for instance, on one side of the spectrum, complete hands-off, a patch all policy would automatically patch, once again, all of these operating systems and all of these third-party titles with one simple policy based on a schedule. Then we can start getting more hands-on, more granular with your patching so that you can start narrowing in on exactly what you want to do. For instance, we have a patch-only policy. I showed you in my organization how many versions of Chrome I have. Well, I could choose to leave all of the operating systems and all of the other third-party apps, but I want to patch only Chrome. I could do a patch-only policy just for that application. And then I can do the inverse of that. So let's say, for instance, I have some Windows servers, some SQL servers in my environment. What I want to do is I want to patch all of the operating system updates. I want to patch all of the third-party titles, but I don't want to apply any SQL updates because I want to keep my database very stable. So I can patch everything except SQL updates. Then I can get completely hands-on and very granular with what we call a manual patch policy. And what this will do, it'll run the policy based on a schedule, but it won't apply any updates automatically. What it will do, it will determine what should be updated, and then it'll present the admin user with a list of each individual update, and the admin would then go and manually approve or reject each individual update. So that's very, very hands-on, very granular, gives you very strict control. We can patch by severity. That's pretty self-explanatory. But one thing I want to show you, and I won't run through a whole policy, but I do just want to show you the flexibility when it comes to scheduling a policy. All of our policies have very simple scheduling, right? I can point and click and choose which days and weeks I want to schedule this. And also, we have very strict or very flexible control over what you choose to tell the end users. Do you want to enable or disable automatic reboots? You can have custom pop-ups that tell your users what is going to be installed. So this is a message at install time. You can also give the user the capability, their own control, saying, okay, I'm busy right now, but come back in 1 hour, in 4 hours, in 8 hours. You give them the ability to defer those installs. Same thing with reboots, a custom message, as well as the ability to defer that reboot until it's more convenient for the end user. However, ultimately, if the user runs out of deferrals, we will automatically then either install that software or reboot that machine. So very much control and flexibility with regard to what you'll tell your end users. Another policy type is the required software policy, and I'll show you one example. Let's say, for instance, it's corporate policy for me to have a certain version of an application installed. Well, what our agent will do, it will scan each end station for this application, and it will check this version or later needs to be installed. If it's not installed, then we will automatically go and install the install file that's uploaded to the system. This can be a custom application developed in-house. This can be a commercial application that you want to roll out to your organization. And in this way, you can apply standard versions of software throughout your organization. Once again, you can do this based on a schedule that you choose. So if the end user happens to uninstall something, doesn't matter. We will go and reinstall it. In this case, every day at 9:05 a.m., for instance, we're going to install that. Okay, now the next type is this type called a worklet. And what a worklet is, again, it's that ability to automate anything scriptable, including, for instance, security configurations. So I'll show you this. I'll show you one simple example. But let's say in my organization, it's security policy that remote desktop is not allowed in my organization. So what I can do is I have a worklet, and the way a worklet operates is it's a scripting tool, but it has two sections to it. It has evaluation code and remediation code. And really, what evaluation code is, this is where we ask a question on the end station: does a condition exist or not? And based on the response, you can either choose to do something or not do something. So in this case, what the script is doing, it's checking to see whether remote desktop connections are allowed or not. And if the settings are at the desired value, then don't do anything. However, if these items are not set correctly, then the remediation code will then take over and will go and set those configurations into their desired state. So for instance, in this way, oh, and by the way, once again, you can do it by a schedule, just like we showed you before. Now, in this way, I can apply, for instance, security baseline configurations. Maybe I have a worklet that disables remote printing, disables remote desktop connections. Maybe it applies some standard password complexities. Maybe it even, and we also have these worklets actually built in the console already for you. You don't have to build all of these, but we have worklets in here. There's about 150 that do things like maybe enable Windows firewalls, maybe uninstalling. Remember we spoke about uninstalling Minecraft. I can uninstall applications. I can also, for instance, roll back Windows patches. Lots and lots of different use cases that are already built into the system, even things such that may not be configurations, but things such as network health checks. So when a user calls into the IT help desk to say, I'm having issues connecting to something, you could check and see, run this worklet, and that would check and see, is the user having basic network connectivity issues? So lots and lots of power here with worklets. Really, the imagination is your only limitation here. So I could go into this in much more detail, but I realize we are a little limited in time. So let me show you some reports here. Everything from a detailed activity log, where I can see exactly what happens with regards to all of my policies. And we actually have lots of different capabilities, such as, for instance, I have a worklet that does a log4shell scan across my environment, and here's the results. Luckily, I don't have any vulnerabilities with regard to that. I have, for instance, another one that runs and it does a speed test for me. So again, when a user calls in, I can run a speed test to determine, is the user having network connectivity issues? In this case, not. So again, lots of details here. We can show you all of the logs that come out of a device based on the policies. Then we have some more high-level overview report. Let me show you this one. This gives me a good indication of my entire environment. What's my percentage of compliance? And then it breaks down those devices. So maybe I've got some devices that I didn't automatically reboot after patches. I have some devices that need reboots. I have some devices that, remember that manual policy where you manually go and approve or reject updates. I have some devices that are up to date. I've got some devices that are scheduled. And what does my history look like as to when we installed patches and what the severity of those patches were? And then I can also come down here and look at all of the groups in my organization and say, do I have any exposure to any critical or high severity updates over that we've been exposed to for a certain time? So here you can see I've only got some unknown in this group here. I've only got some unknown severity updates, that I've been exposed to for 31 to 60 days, but I do not have any exposure to any of these more severe updates. Then I also have other reports such as what's coming up in my environment, what is going to be patched. Here I see every device, and I can see the updates that are going to happen. I can see which CVEs are addressed and when is that update going to happen. So here you can see, for instance, this Windows 10 machine. It's got an update that will be applied that addresses all of these CVEs. It's high severity, and that update will happen on the 30th of June, basically at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So very good visibility per device, showing me exactly what's going to happen in my environment when. So that's really, I could go into a lot more detail, but in the interest of time, I think that concludes my demonstration, and I really appreciate all of your attention today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan, for demonstrating your product so well. And I'm sure that the people will get a very good insight of your product. Thank you. And so now we will be moving to our next session,